Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is going to be an episode of It Came From the Network. On this episode, we're going back to the beginning. Royal Rumble 1998, the first televised Royal Rumble. I say that because there was actually one Rumble before this, but this is the first one we have on the network. So, before we jump into that, just a preface. If you're not familiar with It Came From the Network, basically what we do here, we review the wacky, weird, campy, goofy, sometimes just outright bad stuff you can find on the WWE Network, and we put it up to review. So let's jump right into it. Coming out swinging for Royal Rumble 88, first match of the night, Ravishing Rick Rude versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. This was a solid match. Not as great as it could be with these two competitors, but I don't want you to think I'm also saying it was bad. It was a solid match. It was good. It probably would have been a really good Saturday night's main event, or something of that nature. It's weird that they started off the show with this, and you'll notice later why I say that. This probably should have been the main event. Steamboat picks up the win by DQ when Rude throws a ref in front of him. Kind of a old school thing. To me, I liked it a lot. I liked the match. I think it could have been better, especially with the two competitors involved. Next up, we have a staple of wrestling in the 80s. Dino Bravo is going to attempt to set the world bench pressing record, hard to spit it all out, at 715 pounds. Well, we see Dino do several bench presses at different weights. He has his manager out there, Frenchie Martin, and Jesse the Body Ventura is there to spot him. He gets up to the weight to set the record, lifts it up. You can see he's starting to struggle. Jesse helps him up to the bar. They could say he's got the record. We go off. This I thought was alright. I liked this. I kind of remember segments like this, and I don't know why they don't use them now, other than maybe they figured out it's not what people like to watch. But these were kind of the things that they would throw at the wall at us, like to introduce a character or to make you think a character was better or a cheater or, all those kind of things. Throughout the rest of the night on commentary, we had Vince McMahon and Jesse would go back and forth about whether Jesse had cheated or not. Vince would show in angles of the video showing him obviously cheating to help, but Jesse insinuating that he was only spotting and didn't help lift the weight at all. But anyway, I thought it was cool. I liked it. It was a throwback. I kind of wish they did more stuff like this. We've seen a little bit of it with Mark Henry and a little bit of the test of strength with Braun Strowman throwing trucks around and stuff of that nature. I kind of wish we had like these things like the tug of wars, the arm wrestling matches, the lift-offs, little silly things that in the overall scheme of things are silly, but it adds a little different dynamic to your show and a different way to show that a wrestler is dominant. Now next up, we have the Women's Tag Team Championship match. In a 2 out of 3 falls match, and yes, people, there used to be a Women's Tag Team Championship way back in the late 80s, early 90s. First we have the Glamour Girls, Leilani Kai and Judy Martin, newly managed by Jimmy the Mouth of the South Hart. This is when they both decide to dye their hair blonde, wear gold-centric outfits, hence the Glamour Girl name. And they're going up against the Jumping Bomb Angels, which I don't believe they said their names on this show. I believe they called them Jumping Bomb Angel 1 or 2. I think Vince said one of their names once. I don't personally remember them, and I didn't look them up. I do apologize. But they were a fantastic tag team. I remember as a kid, I really liked their style, and I liked them as a team. And as I grew older, I realized, I like them because women's wrestling in Japan is superior to wrestling in America, at least at this point, and even questionably all the way up to this point in history now that we record this. But I liked the match. It was really good. The Jumping Bomb Angels win with 2 out of 3 of the falls. It was a really well worked match. I liked the dichotomy between the 2 older legend wrestlers against 2 up and coming young wrestlers. I thought it worked out well. I liked it. I thought it was a good match for the card. Next up, we see Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant coming out for a contract signing for their rematch of the WrestleMania 3 match, which is going to take place a month later at Saturday night's main event. Andre's flanked by DiBiase and Virgil, having his contract recently sold to DiBiase, so DiBiase can use Andre to win the championship and then sell it to him. We see your normal tropes. We see the Hogan sign it, getting excited. We see Andre sign it, and then tip the desk over and hit Hogan in the head with it, or hit Hogan's head off the desk and then tip it over on him and walk away. Kind of like what we expect from contract signings now. It was more special back then. Anytime you had Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant in the same ring, especially back in this time, it was a special moment, and the fans acted accordingly. The fans went crazy for this. It was amazing. It set up one of the most controversial matches of all time, and at least storyline-wise. But it set up for the rematch of Hogan and Andre, which led us to everything that happened at WrestleMania 4. It was a great little segment here with 2 of your all-time greats. If you added DiBiase, 3 of your all-time greats. I liked it a lot. It sold the match. It still sells the match to this day if you didn't know it was coming. So, to me, I thought it was great. Now, next up, we get into the Royal Rumble match. Now, I'm not going to say who all got eliminated, but I am going to run off the 20 wrestlers involved, and yes, it was only a 20-man Royal Rumble back then. I'm going to run them off in the order they arrived into their Rumble. In other words, the first guy in is the first one going to manage. We had Bret the Hitman Hart, Tito Santana, The Natural Butch Reed, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Jake the Snake Roberts, Handsome Harley Race, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell, Sam Houston, Danny Davis, Boris Zukov, Don the Rock Morocco, Nikolai Volkov, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Outlaw Ron Bass, B. Brian Blair, Hillbilly Jim, Dino Bravo, The Ultimate Warrior, One Man Gang, and the Junkyard Dog. As you can see, quite a plethora of legends, a lot of guys in there that would go on to be Hall of Famers, a lot of guys that would be or have been World and Intercontinental Tag Team Champions. A lot of talent in that match. A couple of things I thought were really neat and novel to the era. I don't think they obviously with it being the second one they did and the first one televised. I don't think they fleshed out the format. At one point there was a mishap with Morocco and Volkov on who was supposed to come out to the ring. Volkov's number was after Morocco. I don't think it didn't seem like it was a purposeful accident while watching it. And if it was, they didn't know how to do that yet just right. A lot of it was really kind of weird. There was a lot of moments where the faces would only go after heels and the heels would only go after faces, and that was most of the match, which is weird to see now when you see a Royal Rumble where everybody's against themselves. Even when a guy would come out, and it would tip the odds to the favor of the faces or the heels, either Vince or Jesse Ventura would say, "Oh, that's 3-on-2 now. That's 4-on-2," which was weird because I don't think they ever really acknowledged the fact that there were faces and heels, just that there were wrestlers, and some were good and some were bad. They never really acknowledged that it was two different camps, but just really neat and different for the time. You could obviously see it's something they worked out, something that they were just trying, a brand new concept, which has gone on to become the institution that it is now. Your winner, if you didn't know, which most people already know this, was Hacksaw Jim Duggan, last eliminating the one-man gang. I thought this was a good, solid Battle Royal Rumble match. Thought it was cool for what it was, cool for the time. Definitely got in a lot of guys that would go on, that had already been legends and would go on to be even more legendary for the most part. I liked it. It held up surprisingly well, in my opinion. Next up, we get an interview with Hogan, talks about what happened before at the contract signing, hypes up his match coming up. Remember, folks, this was a special on USA. This wasn't a pay-per-view. So they used some of it to hype up Saturday night's main event, which was one of their bigger things, which this year the Saturday night's main event right before, at that time, was going to lead right into WrestleMania and be the hype up for that. So we're getting basically what we have now, the road to WrestleMania beginning, which is pretty cool to see that even 30 years ago that formula was still in place a bit. It may be a little bit different now, but the way they used it then is still kind of in place. Started with the Rumble and at Mania. Weirdly enough, we have the main event of the night, which wasn't the Royal Rumble match, which wasn't the two great wrestler match of Rick Rude versus Ricky Steamboat. We had the Islanders, which are a great tag team, don't get me wrong, versus the Young Stallions, which were basically a glorified jobber team in another 2 out of 3 fall tag team match. It was Paul Roma and Jim Powers. They never really reached past mid-card in the tag division. The Islanders, I thought, were a fantastic team. This was early in their run. I liked them. I thought they were great. They worked well together. This actually was a good match. We had the first fall happen, and then the weird thing goes, after the first fall, we get about 10 minutes before the second fall, because not only did they go to commercial break, which was standard at the time between falls, but when they came back, much like they did with Hogan, after the first fall and before the second fall, we had an interview with Andre the Giant and Ted DiBiase talking about what he was going to do to Hogan. So really kind of a weird placing and a weird way to watch it, a weird way to structure the match. So after all that stalling, we come back to the second and third fall. The Islanders pick up the win, 2 falls to 1. It was a good match. I thought it was weirdly placed. I would have flipped this with Rude and Steamboat and made Rude and Steamboat the main event, or made the Royal Rumble itself the main event. This was just weird placement on the card. It's a good match, but it's a good opening match. It's not a good going out off the air match. It's not a main event as we would see. It just felt really weirdly placed and kind of threw me off a bit. But overall, looking back at the quality, Rude vs. Steamboat was good. Not as good as I thought it should be. Dino Bravo bench press, that was pretty cool. I liked that. The Royal Rumble itself was pretty good. The Glamour Girls vs. the Jumping Bomb Angels was a good match. And the Islanders vs. the Young Stallions was a good match. And also the contract signings and all that other stuff were pretty cool too. Surprisingly, this held up better than most of the shows of that era in WWF hold up. A lot of the old WWF shows don't hold up well at all. They're hard to watch. The style of wrestling's hard. The presentation doesn't hold up well. This one did. This one we had a couple fast-paced matches. We had an interesting concept with the Royal Rumble and the fast-paced eliminations and fast-paced entrance. So everything was sped up. I mean, everything from Rude and Steamboat, which you knew would be at a better pace than normal matching, to the Glamour Girls versus the Jumping Bomb Angels. The Jumping Bomb Angels were basically like hitting fast forward on your remote back then. The Islanders and Young Stallions worked a really fast-paced match. They worked a match that you could see today on Monday Night Raw and it wouldn't look out of place. So, overall, the quality of the matches was excellent. The quality of what we seen on the show was good. The quality of talent was here. I mean, we had some of the all-time greats all through the night. I really enjoyed this Royal Rumble, and I liked it more than I thought I was going to like it going back into that, which is going to lead us into our ratings. Now, if you haven't seen the show before, or if you have and you need a refresher, we have a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 1 is a gobbledygooker, 2 is a Dungeon of Doom, 3 is a Hurricane Helms, 4 is a Gold Dust, 5 is Kane. I'm going to give the show a 4 of Gold Dust. Couple little things kept it from being a 5. The weird placing of the Islanders Young Stallions match would have flipped that with Rude and Steamboat. And then Rude and Steamboat themselves having, I'm not knocking this match, it's a good match, it's not a great match. If I was to give them a rating on their match on a scale of 5, I would say it was probably a 3.5, 4, somewhere in that range. But I expected a 5 coming into it. So there's a little bit of a letdown, but it's more my own doing because I seen who they were and I expected more. But anyway, some guys just don't mesh the way they should, but it's not a bad match. I don't want you to think I'm trashing it. It's just that it's not as good of a match as I thought it should be. So again, overall I'm giving a 4, a Gold Dust. I thought this was a really good show that held up really well, especially with the standards of the WWF at the time and shows of that era. If you go back, a lot of them don't hold up really well now. This one did. This one you can still watch now and still have a lot of excitement out of. I enjoyed it. I recommend going back and checking it out. And basically, that's all I have to say on this one. My name is George Coles, and it's been another episode of It Came From the Network.